We romanticize the moment we'll finally feel ready. Like one day, we'll wake up and the fear will be gone. Like the path will just light itself and the doubt will evaporate and we'll just know. But it doesn't work like that. It never has. I've done some of the hardest things in my life before I ever felt prepared. And somehow, I didn't just survive. I became. I became through the mess, through the trembling hands, through the what if I fail, through the silence after sending the text, through the breath before the mic turned on, through the aching body that showed up to the gym anyway, through the long nights without the vice I once called comfort. Readiness is a myth we inherit from perfectionism, fear, and the fantasy of control. We think if we're not ready, we're not worthy. But readiness isn't a doorway you pass through. It's a mirror you smash on your way out of the waiting room. If you're waiting to feel ready, you're really waiting to not feel afraid. You're waiting for the butterflies to stop, for your nerves to vanish, for the moment to feel safe. But that feeling you're chasing, that calm, collected confidence, it doesn't show up before the leap. It arrives after, in the air, mid-fall, in motion. Every real turning point in your life, the ones that actually changed you, didn't begin because you were ready. They began because you were done waiting. And now, here you are, still breathing, still becoming, not ready, but real. And that's more than enough. We've been sold this idea that we need to get it together first, that we should be confident before we speak, disciplined before we commit, healed before we love, as if readiness is some kind of moral requirement, like you have to deserve to begin. But what if that's backwards? What if the act of beginning is what shapes you into someone who can carry it? What if clarity doesn't come before the choice, but through it? I've spent years postponing steps I was perfectly capable of taking, telling myself I just needed more time, more skill, more confidence. But that story was fear dressed up as responsibility. That story kept me small, it kept me safe, and it kept me from living. There is a cost to waiting, to over-preparing, to editing yourself into silence. You don't get those days back. You don't get to feel your way into the perfect moment, because that moment doesn't exist. There is only now, and now, and now again. No matter how much you rehearse, life will demand improvisation. And no matter how much you plan, the version of you that emerges will be born in the doing, not the preparing. The leap doesn't wait for you to feel worthy. It's already here. And the longer you stand at the edge, the more you convince yourself you were never meant to fly. But you were. You were never supposed to feel ready. You were supposed to be willing. And that's enough to begin. Not because the fear is gone, but because something deeper has taken root beneath it. A quiet defiance. A pulse that says, even if I shake, I'll still move. Even if my voice cracks, I'll still speak. Even if I fall, I'll still be in motion. And that motion matters more than how clean it looks. I've seen it in myself and in others. The way we wait for permission to start, as if someone wiser, more qualified, more certain is supposed to tap us on the shoulder and say, "Now, you're ready. You've earned it." But no one's coming. The voice you're waiting for, it's your own, muffled under the noise of comparison, pressure, or fear. But it's there, and it's tired of waiting. You don't become courageous by thinking about courage. You don't become strong by analyzing the gym from your couch. You don't become honest by rehearsing what you might say someday. You become by doing, by showing up messy, by trying before the timing feels perfect, by letting real life break the script. This is where becoming begins, not at the finish line, not with the answers, but in the first step you take before you know where it leads. And the trust that whatever rises to meet you, pain, joy, failure, growth, you'll handle it. Because deep down, you already have. You've survived every moment you once felt unprepared for. You've made it through every version of "I can't do this" you once believed. And here you are, still breathing, still standing, still becoming. So no, you're not ready. You're real. And that's exactly why it's time. We put so much weight on preparation, as if the more we plan, the more we research, the more we fine-tune, the less scared we'll feel when the moment arrives. But fear doesn't dissolve in preparation. It waits. It hides in the cracks. It grows in the silence between attempts. You can prepare forever and still feel unworthy, still feel like an imposter, still hear the voice that says, "You're not ready yet, just a little more time." But that voice doesn't want more time. It wants certainty. It wants a guarantee that doesn't exist. Preparation is useful. It builds a foundation. It gives you tools. But perfectionism, that's not preparation. That's a prison. A looping hallway where the door forward never appears, because you're too busy making sure every step behind you is flawless. At some point, the only way out is through. At some point, you have to move, not because the fear is gone, but because the weight of not moving has become heavier than the risk of falling. You don't become brave by thinking. You become brave by moving forward while afraid. You become brave in motion, not in theory. Bravery isn't a personality trait. It's a muscle. And muscles don't grow under observation. They grow under pressure, under repetition, under strain. Every time you act before you feel ready, You teach your nervous system something powerful. We can survive this. We can stand in discomfort and not disappear. We don't need to be certain to be present. This is the quiet magic of real transformation. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't wait for your confidence to catch up. It happens in the doing. The more you move forward, the more you realize that readiness was never the requirement. Willingness, honesty, and presence was. And those things, you can choose them right now. We rarely say it out loud. Instead, we say, I just need more time. I want to feel more confident before I start. Once I'm in a better place, I'll go for it. But what we mean is, I'm scared. Scared of failing. Scared of succeeding. Scared of being seen. Scared of discovering we're not who we hoped we'd be. Or worse, that we are. Readiness becomes a mask, a way to dress our fear and logic, because fear in a suit sounds reasonable, but underneath that logic is hesitation, self-doubt, and the belief that the version of us today isn't enough. And the thing is, that fear isn't the enemy. Fear is proof that the thing matters. Fear means you care, but waiting for it to disappear before you move, that's how dreams rot in notebooks and drafts and someday. You say, I'll start when I'm ready, but readiness isn't a door that opens. It's a hallway you walk into without a map. You say, I need more time, but time isn't the answer when what you really need is courage. And courage doesn't come pre-installed. It's built in real time, on the phone call you make with shaking hands, in the email you send with your heart pounding, in the day you show up to the gym knowing you feel weak, but you go anyway. Readiness is the story we tell ourselves to delay the becoming, but becoming doesn't care about your story. It waits in the leap, and it reveals itself only after you move. The life you're imagining, the stronger you, the clearer you, the version who finally follows through, that life isn't waiting for you to feel ready. It's waiting for you to stop pretending you have to be. It's already possible, and it's already yours, but only if you stop rehearsing and start living. The next part of the journey, it's not in the plan. It's in the plunge. You didn't know how to grieve until grief chose you. You didn't know how to lead until everyone else fell silent and you were the only one left standing. You didn't know how to be alone until you had no choice but to sit in the echo of your own breath and call it company. So many of the things you now carry with strength, you first picked up trembling. The person you are becoming is shaped in the moments of uncertainty, not control. You are not built in the plans. You are built in the pivots, in the detours, in the moments that break your script in half and say, now, show up anyway. You never felt ready for the loss, for the shift, for the goodbye, for the rebuilding, but you found your way forward not because you had the map, but because you kept moving. You didn't have the blueprint, but you had breath, you had instinct, you had the quiet, stubborn pulse of, I can't stay here anymore. That's what carried you through. We imagine our future selves as wise, polished, emotionally composed, but the truth is, they are born out of the chaos we're scared to face today. They aren't the results of any perfect plans. They're the result of messy beginnings, of trial and error, of showing up before we knew how. You don't become the strongest version of yourself by waiting for the storm to pass. You become them by learning to stand inside it, sopping wet, uncertain, but alive. And then walking out the other side, not because the fear left, but because you did it anyway. That's how change happens. That's how becoming begins. Not in comfort, not in certainty, but in the moment you decide to stop shrinking in the face of the unknown and start shaping yourself inside it. The you you're chasing is not behind some locked door called readiness. They're inside the leap, and they're waiting for you to jump. What if the only thing keeping you from starting wasn't a lack of skill or timing, but the belief that you need something more than what you already carry? You've been conditioned to think there's always something missing, that you need another course, another body, another dollar, another degree. But that's not truth. That's business. The system profits off your hesitation, off the idea that you are always one step behind your potential. It sells you comfort in the form of delay. It teaches you to fear failure more than stagnation. But you already have the tools. Your breath, your body, your voice, your eyes, your instinct. The very things that carried you through every impossible moment up to this one. You didn't earn presence. You returned to it. And in that return, you remembered something sacred. You don't have to feel ready to be real. And being real is what moves mountains. You don't prepare to become yourself. You peel away everything that told you you weren't. The weight of that lie, that you need to be more before you begin. It's heavy. It slows you. It hides the door. But now you know. Now you see it. And now we move. Because readiness isn't coming. And it was never supposed to. So we stop waiting. We step, not because it's time, but because we are. So we step, awkward, unsure, maybe even trembling, but forward, because movement is where life happens, not in the perfect plan, not in the illusion of certainty, but in the messy, honest act of beginning. The future doesn't demand you to be fearless. It asks you to be present, to show up before the script is written, to say yes before you've rehearsed your lines. There's a kind of quiet power in deciding to trust yourself, even without the evidence. To trust that whatever the moment asks of you, you'll find a way to meet it. That you'll stretch it if it asks for strength, soften it if it asks for grace, speak if it asks for truth, and listen if it asks for silence. That's not readiness, that's presence. And presence is what readiness pretends to be. You've already lived through so many moments you didn't think you were built for. And still, you adapted, you learned, you grew. You didn't wait for permission. You responded to life. That's all becoming ever is. So if you're waiting for a sign, this is it. Not because everything's perfect, but because you've outgrown the version of yourself who thinks it needs to be. You don't need to be ready. You just need to begin. Because the version of you you're waiting to become, the one who's clear, steady, strong, and sure, they're not at the finish line. They're not waiting with a medal in hand, clapping for your eventual arrival. They're inside the leap. They only exist if you choose to move. You can't think your way into becoming. You have to step. You have to speak before the voice feels steady. You have to show up before the mirror reflects what you hope to see. You have to risk being seen without the armor, because only then do you discover you never needed it to be enough. The altar of certainty will always promise comfort, but it demands your life in return. And your life is worth more than your silence, your waiting, your paused dreams. Your life is now, and now, and now again. The longer you wait for the moment to feel right, the more you miss that it already is. The fear might never leave, but neither will your breath. And your breath is proof that you're allowed to be here, that you're allowed to try, to begin, to become. So, start now. Not because you're ready, but because you're real. And being real is enough. Readiness was never going to arrive, but you will. Thanks for watching. If this resonated with you, if it lit even a small spark, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. I'm still getting used to making content like this. If you want more of this weekly, spoken essays, philosophy, storytelling, let me know. I'm open to whatever feedback and suggestions you might have. And if this met you at the right time, maybe share it with someone who's also standing at the edge, waiting to feel ready. Like, subscribe, all that. And please, keep becoming. But most importantly, stay present.